are here today at JTA for P16015 for Oracle ERP Support Services. We are interviewing AST Corporation today. What we'll do to start off is we'll go through the committee, we'll introduce the JTA folks, and we'll come over to you guys to introduce yourselves. We will time this today just to keep it in line. We will give 15 minutes. I know you guys brought a brief presentation and you were asked to highlight your response and anything that you wanted to highlight further. We will then go into 20 minutes of questions and answers for the committee to ask you guys any questions. If there is some remaining time left, we will give you an opportunity to ask us questions. Today will be set up more of an informational interview rather than our typical presentation for informational purposes. I am Teresa Lynn, JTA Contracts and Procurement Manager.
Harry Caulfield, Project Manager on the ERP side.
Kenyatta Lee, Senior Manager of Technology and Innovation.
LaShelby Thompson, Senior Business Analyst.
I'm Matt Conner, Human Resources Generalist.
Oh, I'm sorry. Tony Catalano, Chief Operating Officer for AST.
I'm David Dawson. I am the account executive responsible for the southeastern United States with AST.
I'm Praveen Kumar, President and CEO of AST.
Okay, thank you, gentlemen. We will start the 15-minute time for your presentation. You don't have to use that full time. If you do get close, I'll give you a 3-minute warning. I'll just wave at you to let you know that you're getting close, and then I'll cut you off right at 15 minutes. And go.
Okay, thank you very much for having us in. This is in response to your RFP and some clarification on our response to that. How do you get this thing? There we go.
There you go.
Just a quick agenda. We've already introduced ourselves. AST Corporation, I'm not used to sitting down and doing this. I'm used to walking around. But one thing you need to understand about AST, all we do is Oracle. And we do the entire Oracle stack. If you see preferred, recognized, and specialized, we have practices around all major Oracle products, from their technology through the EBS, through BI, through the Hyperion planning and budgeting tool sets. We are recognized as a platinum partner, but more importantly, we have specialized certifications in many, many areas of Oracle technologies. These certifications have to be renewed every year. Oracle monitors them. You've got to provide customer references to attain this specialized status. If you look along the bottom, and of course I'll provide you, Teresa, with this presentation, but if you look along the bottom, we won several awards. All those are very important because we're one of the Inc. 5000 top companies to work for, top 100 companies in Chicago. All that allows us to retain our staff. We rely solely on AST employees. We do not have contractors come in and work for us. You will have an AST staff of employees that work for our company that will be on your project. There we go. Our understanding of the project, and I'm going to move really quickly because of the time constraints. There's really 3 phases: an assessment, which is the upfront part, recommendations, and then providing you with Oracle EBS support services on an ongoing basis. As part of the assessment, you can read it, but we'll basically identify, catalog what we find. We'll review the system security setups. We'll recommend best practices to you, and we will also, have an on-site dedicated project manager. But also during this time, if we see things that are critical and they're low-hanging fruit, we'll actually resolve some issues as we're going through this, working with your team. When we come out of the assessment phase, we'll identify gaps, process bottlenecks, again, best practices, provide recommendations to you and your team, provide options for what you can do going forward, and then we'll generate a detailed report of the findings, and that will be presented to you. So all this will be done through the assessment and shortly thereafter. All that data will allow us to provide you with the EBS support services that you need going forward from there. We'll have a good knowledge of your system, we'll have a good knowledge of the modules, how you've implemented them, but more importantly, what are your business processes? What do you need to have defined? Where are your gaps? Is it training? Is it user understanding of the system? Is it things maybe were implemented in a way that it doesn't meet your business process? So there's a lot of things that need to be defined to make the system optimum for what you're looking for. Why AST Managed Services? Quite frankly, we're the most experienced public sector EBS R12 team in the nation. We did the first R12 implementation of Oracle in the public sector. We're doing the first cloud implementation of Oracle Cloud ERP at the City of Detroit. Our team members have an average of 10 years of R12 experience. And since we use AST employees and only AST employees, our teams have worked together. They know each other. They know each other's strengths and weaknesses when it comes to clients. We will deliver a cohesive team that will be able to support your organization and work with your organization, because it's really a collaborative process, right? We have to work with you. You have to work with us. We need knowledge transfer from our consultants to you, but we also need you to tell us, what you're really specifically looking for in certain areas. So you're going to have to help us with business processes so that we can make you as, optimum of an organization as you can possibly achieve with the Oracle system. We got, proven processes and procedures that are repeatable. AST has never had a failed project. We've always completed projects on time, under budget. We're very proud of that. You can only achieve that kind of success through proven processes and procedures that are repeatable. Just a couple of our transportation clients. There are very few Oracle EBS customers in the transportation vertical that AST has not worked with. We have a dedicated transportation practice, so we're very familiar with your business and what you do. That will help us to understand your system and your needs more rapidly. Oh, there we go. I'm going to turn it over to Tony now, our COO, and let him proceed.
Again, thanks for the time, and I do want to it seemed like the questions that we had to prepare for were very much centric around the assessment process and what we do as far as post-implementation assessment. So we have put together a few slides. Obviously, there might be a lot of content that we can cover here in this short time frame, but we want to give you an overview of our approach because, we've been there, done that, and we've done this for several organizations, and definitely can highlight any more detail should you have any questions. But our assessment framework is based on three major phases, right? We're going to come in, we're going to make a plan of the assessment. We're going to come in and do the discovery phase, and we're going to do a lot of interviewing, meeting with expertise, your subject matter expertise, I should say. We're going to evaluate your systems. We're going to, and find out more information, and then make recommendations for what David had just said. But this is a real process-oriented, stage-by-stage flow for us to come through and do the assessment. So those are the three major phases of our timeline. A little bit more detail. So we're going to look in a couple different areas. First, we're going to do the technical assessment, right? So EBS has a big technical foundation. We're going to look at the infrastructure. Now, we realize that you're hosted by Tricor, and they're I don't know what they're doing for you other than hosting. If they are doing database services and infrastructure services, we'll figure all that out. But we're going to do an infrastructure assessment to make sure the infrastructure is appropriately sized, that there's configuration, security is appropriate, and making sure that that infrastructure is appropriate. Database application health check. Are we getting the performance measures that you're looking at? We're going to look at your ChemLeads, which are your customizations and extensions that we looked at, and see what the issues are, if there's any with that. Integration, if you have third-party integration, which I do believe you do. So we're going to look at that area. And then I think there's a reporting challenge as well. So per the RFP, so we'll come and look and see what are your reporting requirements? What do you need to do your job more effectively? How do you utilize the Oracle tool set and use those more effectively? So that's really the technical side. On the functional side, we're going to look at what are current issues that you're having, what are the current gaps that you guys see in the market in the implementation. We're going to look at new and future requirements that are talked about. Do you want to do budgeting? I think that was an optional thing. Do you want to use grants analytics as well? So we understand there's some optional things. What's the future? How does that fit into your roadmap? We're going to look at business process, pain areas, look at your training plan and identify what training is going to be required by functional area for you as well. And then we're going to look at process improvements, and those are natural. If we look and see, because we've done this so much for the public sector, we've done this so much for transportation, we know what works at other places, and we'd come in and recommend those and say, hey, organization A is doing it this way, why aren't you doing it this way? And you look at it and there's no reason why not. Well, let's implement that streamlined process. And that comes with our years of experience that we come in. Obviously, you guys are involved, JTA is involved throughout this process. We can't do this in a vacuum, right? So we're going to need to be tied at the hip. We're going to be asking a lot of questions. We have a lot of JAD sessions. But we're going to need some help and some guidance on a lot of these. And, obviously we'll be using your Tricor as your hosted provider to help us, with any of the infrastructure stuff. But those are your responsibilities to help us and how you're integrated into this project and framework. What we proposed was a 5-week time frame based on the approach per our proposal. That 5 weeks is a guideline. It's typically what we anticipate is a relatively good timeline to do an assessment. Some organizations have the bandwidth and the time to devote to a 5-week schedule. If it's too demanding on your staff because they have full-time jobs, right, we can figure out what the right timeline is for you. But we've proposed a five-week timeline. And that 5-week timeline is, there's a week 0. There's some preparation going in. Because when we come in on week 1, we want to make sure we hit the ground running as to what our sessions we're going to have, what our project plan is, et cetera, et cetera. So week 1, we're going to hit the ground, and we're going to make sure we understand the scope and get confirmation of the scope and the assessment plan. And then we're going to roll up our sleeves and start doing the discovery phase and look at the gaps. Then we're going to determine where do you want to be from a target state perspective, and then ultimately come up with final recommendations. And if there's anything that needs to be done or remediated or fixed or enhanced, we'll come up with a kind of what we feel is the estimate and approach to implement those other things or all those corrective actions as well. And we'll do a formal presentation to the committee as well, to what we're finding as well. So that's the ultimate deliverable that we have. There's a lot of text here. I think I've covered most of this, but again, there are deliverables, and there's a reason why why we're doing these activities as part of the plan, discover, and recommend phase. But you'll see, really, it says a lot of what I just talked about: assessment, scope, and project plan, stakeholder interview schedule, and et cetera, et cetera. But the one thing I want to make sure you're aware, and I want to reiterate, is this is a proven methodology that we've gone through. We've done several assessments. We have case studies that we'll kind of probably save till the end for Q&A, but I think it'd be important for you guys to hear where we've done this before as well, and kind of what the outcomes were of that as well. So this is our methodology and deliverables. Okay, oh, we're at the case study. So actually, let me cover this a little bit more detail, because I think we
want to talk about the assessment pricing thing too. Are we
Yeah,
3
no.
minute, 5 minute? How are we doing?
Just over 4 minutes.
left. All right, so let's go there.
Yeah.
So do you want to go to case studies real quick?
Sure, I'll go through that.
Okay.
So real briefly, I'll spend a couple minutes on several case studies, and we have done with a lot of transits, ports and airports. That's our main domain. RTA at Cleveland, Greater Cleveland RTA, is a very relevant example because they were kind of like in your situation, and there was a lot of dissatisfaction in the business areas about how the system was being used, and there was adoptions that clearly lacked from the implementations. And we got in and we identified almost 200 areas of improvement and issues that we cataloged. And very conservatively, I think we resolved over 25% of those issues during assessment itself, because those were such a minor configuration changes and process things and education we had to do to the customers. So that's not very atypical of our engagement on the assessment side. And I wanted to highlight that because that's, if you'd see 5 bids or proposals, most of the vendors don't do that, and we feel that that's a major differentiator that we do in our assessment approach, actually go and solve some of the problems. Because you have invested in trying to learn the system and bond with the users and get their problems and know it, and you are 2 minutes away from fixing it. And if you don't do it, all the learning curve has to start all over again in the next phase. So we catalog all the problems, but we also catalog which ones you can fix immediately and you should fix, and which one you shouldn't fix because they have wider implications. So that's somewhat a difference in our approach, and we have done that for several clients. For the sake of time, I'll kind of take that as an example and skip a few of the other case studies we have. LA Metro has been a long-term customer. We have done a lot of these process improvements there with R12. Jacksonville Airport is a local client, so that's very relevant to bring up. We'll talk about them during the Q&A more so. But I wanted to get into assessment costs and how we arrived at that. That was one of your major questions you asked. Really, we have about 9 to 10 resources because of the number of modules that we are using. It is not really, it's not okay to just have one financial resource cover all the financials module. There are so many financials modules, and no matter how good our consultants are, they cannot cover, one person can't cover all the modules. Same thing with the HCM side. There's the benefits, there's the payroll. Those are required specialized skills. So we have about 10 consultants that are engaged on this, and that might look a little bit overly, sized, but it is because of the expertise that you have to bring in. When you're doing assessment, you really need a higher level of expertise. You just don't have to come in and have the time to do a requirements analysis and get to that level of detail. These people have to really know exactly what you're talking about. They have to have worked in the transit. They have to know the module real well, but they have to be specialized in their areas because they're making some serious recommendations. And you can't second guess that. You really have to know that this works. So that's why we have a relatively larger team. But we go through and do all these tasks, and I spell it out on how these hours. Consulting is not magic. At the end of the day, any consulting estimate is how many hours are you spending on the project. What's your bill rate? Our bill rates are very reasonable, and on average it's about 160 an hour for a very senior level people who do assessment. And you see about 1,650 hours that we have allocated to the assessment, which translate to those services cost, and we have all the team, because of the short duration of the project and the nature of the assessment, we have planned 100% of the work to be done on site. There may be a few hours here and there that people format documents and do all these things remotely, but essentially all the work would be done on site with the consultants interacting with you. I think that's the best way to do it, and that kind of adds up to some travel expenses, and they are listed out there. And because of our fixed price project, we have put in about 5% contingency, roughly, to cover any deviations, stretching of the timelines. So we don't do it in 5 weeks. You want to stretch it out a little bit because people don't have calendar availability for meeting and things like that. So that's very typical for us to put in 5 to 7% contingency. And that's what really adds up to the price tag you have. There's a couple, 3 items that add
We'll
tag.
put it on there. We can go back to this.
We can
This
go
is
back.
mainly what our Q&A is going to be at.
Okay.
but-
Okay, we'll just leave that up.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much the end of our presentation.
We're out of time.
So that worked out well.
Good.
Okay, I just want to start off a little bit with the assessment. Part of what we're looking for as well is the help desk support. So knowing that we have a project manager for the Oracle system, we have a senior BA, we have a BA that handles the employee services framework as far as the core HR, our recruitment, performance management, and payroll. And then we're in the process of hiring a junior BA. So with the staff time needed for the assessment, plus we're gonna need to actually help backfill for help desk support for our users. Because on average, I think right now we're at about 104 tickets maybe, that we need to have some resolution on, that these individuals are working to resolve. And then they're gonna have to devote time to the actual assessment. What would be your approach to ensuring that we kind of stay on that 5-week schedule?
Right, so.
But helping the business on a day-to-day basis.
Perfect. So absolutely, this is something that's a core competency, and you're not alone here. So we had talked about our support services, and we view this as a little bit of 2 distinct, different projects, if you will. One is the assessment. The assessment is, a different process. Our managed services or support services are just that. We typically would provide level 2 and level 3 support. I don't know, do you have a help desk? Guys, question?
Yes.
Okay, you have a help desk, will be the front line, answer the phone, hey, I can't log in, or what have you. If it's an Oracle ticket, we have a very flexible support model. We can make those tickets be directed directly to us, and we would resolve those tickets, either if it's a break fix or something's wrong with it, or how do I do this? So we have a support process of our staff across all modules that people would be answering questions. We do ticket, you're not alone that the ticket backlog tends to get unmanageable at times, as you said, over 100. That's not uncommon, but we can work at reducing that backlog of tickets, as well as respond to new and incoming tickets. So it could be totally something that we would provide. We can do that on an hourly basis, so a lot of our customers, we have flexible models. One is hours-based model, so if you want to subscribe to X amount of hours a particular month, that, saying up to 80 hours a month to support you, or you want to subscribe for more, that'll give you different economies of scale and get you some more cost advantages if you subscribe to more hours on a minimum basis. Or if it's totally ad hoc, it's a little bit more of a challenge for us to respond, because I have to allocate staff to support that. So So what we typically have our customers is subscribe to a certain level of support. We have SLAs that we can present to you as well. So it's a very customized model, so we'll go ahead and attack. So we'll have the assessment going on the same place. We can implement a support model and start doing ticket resolution at the same time as well.
So I'd like to add a couple things to that. For support, it's not effective to have all the people on site all the time. For assessment, you need them, you need a concerted effort, but support is going to be more prolonged. But it is very important to have the triage and assign those tickets to the right person, right time, and answer those things on the first call. So if your help desk assigns us a ticket, and let's say that ticket relates to cash management or accounts payables in a certain area, if we are able to resolve it on the first call, our overall efficiency, what we have found, is much higher. Typical help desk or support model managed services work. You log the ticket and you have a handshake and you forget about it. There's somebody sitting in the middle who assigns all the tickets based on who is available and who is not. We find that the typical process for an ERP system like an Oracle E-Business Suite, where there's a lot of business knowledge that goes in, is not effective. You want the person who is handling and triaging this to completely understand the system and get it solved the first time. So the person who is talked to the first time, if your help desk talks to our analyst, you will almost likely to get a resolution on the first call. And it is effective for us, it is effective for you. It saves everyone time. If I had an admin person or just a manager sit in the middle and read through the tickets and assign it to someone, as opposed to having an EBS literate service delivery manager full-time managing that, then our resolutions are much quicker. And even though that's an expensive resource, at the end of the day, it is a more cost-effective model because we all move quickly. When you leave that ticket hanging out there, even for 2 hours or 4 hours, and then it's a non-EBS, non-transit literate person reading and trying to make sense of it, and then assigning it to an analyst who has to do all over again, it is not effective. So that is our model where our SDMs are completely plugged into. They are EBS hands-on person who are either handling or answering the questions or immediately getting assigned to a consultant who will solve it right away.
As far as the help desk support, who are you currently doing that for?
For Metra Rail in Chicago, we had managed them for 5 years. And then for Rhode Island Airport, we have been doing that for them. Cleveland RTA, we don't have a formal managed services, but we have a blanket agreement on as-needed model. And after doing all the implementation, they are now back to using a GSI contract, so they just give us whatever tickets come up as and when needed.
Metro.
So there's different models. Cleveland RTA is using that model. LA Metro, we are doing that for them, but this is part of a longer fixes and upgrades and all kind of things come in. I suspect that you would not be involving us into the upgrade because you are hosted with Tricor. Typically, the hosted client have an agreement with that vendor to do their upgrades, but we would still come in and help you with the functional side of that. As you're upgrading and adopting new business processes, we have to look at what their contract with Tricor is. So typically, they would not use process enhancements that come with the upgrade. So that's where our support team can augment that while they are doing the technical upgrade. We can augment and do the process improvements. If we do a 3-year contract, you would probably have 1 major and 3 or 4 minor upgrades during that duration. Our role would be to do process improvements with every patch and every upgrade that comes in. Tricor would just technically apply those and get you compliant and supported by Oracle, but you're not necessarily leveraging the enhancements that come with every upgrade. So we would frame it so that we are doing that augmentation role. So that's something that we need to really discuss, how you want to frame the SLA, what roles you want to put on our plate. That's a discussion that has to happen. But assessment would be a right time frame to flush all that out because we would know your organization much better, where the gaps are, whether in the skills and personnel or people, as well as system. So that's something that takes a little bit of time to sort out what kind of engagement you want on the support.
Your other clients that are similar to us, are they also hosted, or do you guys have the entire system?
We have both. So LA Metro is hosted on the on-prem.
Hosted.
but they are hosted, but Cleveland RTA was on-prem, so they did that. Metra, they had their own data center, but we set up their data center. So we were their first tier support. They used our ticketing system. So Metra used everything from us, but they had an on-prem, but we managed the data center.
So for us, it's transparent for us in our services from a support service perspective, whether it's on-prem here or in a third-party host. It's just a little bit different way of we interact. If we need to have something done, obviously we would need to get Tricor involved to say, hey, you need to do this if that's what their agreement is. But it's really from our services perspective, it's very minimal difference. To parlay a little bit about just one point on what Praveen was saying is we have several customers with the exact same footprint that you have. I'll bring up Clark County Water Reclamation District in Las Vegas, Nevada. They have the exact same footprint you have as well. We provide all that support remotely. We do weekly status reports. We do monthly analysis of tickets, how the ticket trending is going. We do annual reviews. But all of our support is done remotely and very effectively. Now, if there's an upgrade or some little project going on, yeah, our people can go on site to do some hand-holding or work with your team as well. But all that is, and that's typically they subscribe to an X amount of hours a month, and then they use and consume those hours as they see fit. If they want an enhancement, we'll do an enhancement. If it's hey, this is broken, can you fix it? Yes. If the NSR needs to be logged with Oracle, we can do that as well.
So as far as development or anything related to that, that will be a part of that, is those subscribed number of hours?
Yes, you can use those hours as any way you want it. So our service delivery manager will work with your project manager, who are the number one person, and we could prioritize what to be worked on a particular basis. 1 month, let's say you want to work on, hey, I want to eliminate the backlog of the tickets, right, versus doing any enhancements. Well, we'll go through and work on, deleting all those, or resolving all those tickets. The next month, you may say, hey, you know what, I have some enhancements. Let's devote a lot of those hours towards doing these enhancements. The flexibility of our model is that you can use these hours any way you see fit and want us to direct those times. I'm not hiding anything.
You mentioned
So-
the one that was kind of about our same footprint, so I was like asking.
That's about
Yeah.
$40,000 a month.
Okay.
Right, so we have customers that we do managed services anywhere from 15,000 per month to Metra, we're paying in excess of 100,000 per month.
Yep.
Metra, we were managing pretty much everything, and they had 5 different lines. There were other railways that go through
Right.
Metra, as well as all the remote ticketing stations. So that was pretty complicated. We were managing their wireless and all kind of things on there. So that was in excess of 100,000 per month. So that's the kind of
The
range.
range, yeah.
I don't think you'd be anywhere close to that, because you already have hosted and you're managing all that
Okay.
contract.
And what we can do too is we can start out with an hours-based model, right, until we get to a stabilization phase. So we have an implementation methodology, or EASM, which is our support methodology, which starts obviously as a transition in. But our goal is to get you to a stabilization point where we're doing root cause analysis. We're eliminating issues. Instead of fixing them one by one over and over again, we're going to look at root cause and fix them. So your ticket volume should go down over time. It will go down over time. And then at some point, it's stable. You're in a stabilization phase. What we can do is propose a fixed price thing that allows you to say, for X amount of money, we'll fix all tickets. We'll do all break fix, and we'll be there for you. Enhancements will be extra, but we can do a fixed price if that's something you want to do. But the more
We have a mixed bag right now where some of these tickets that we're talking about are enhancements.
Yep.
Or things that we need to have development work done or something like that.
Yep.
So I think we have about maybe 50 of them that are pretty much on that track that have enhancements needed, so.
half and half about is what you're saying?
Well, yes, I'm thinking about yes.
Okay.
And then some of these are just a backlog that have just been there, sitting, waiting for some type of resolution. But I guess my concern right now is that pretty much your assessment is where we're looking to possibly be for our annual basis for our support. So we're trying to develop what we're gonna need to budget for upcoming, and that's why I'm asking you specific questions related to it. I know it's kind of, hard until you get into the meat of it.
Right.
But just trying to get an understanding of where we need to go.
Yeah, we gave you the ranges, so you are pretty much in that sweet spot. You could pretty much put that scope. If you have a budget that you're working through, we can definitely lay out the scope of services within that. That pretty well covers you. The one thing that didn't come out very well, we had limited time, so I want to stress that, is the Oracle has a lot of modules. Yeah, even though you might be using 25, there are probably 50 out there. And you might have a need for it. You may want to go to one. You may not want to go to one. We don't want you to have shelf products that you buy and keep and don't use. But we want to recommend you what are the right things to do. But when it comes to Oracle portfolio, Certain things that transit uses and public sector uses, a lot of people, even in public sector, don't know what trapeze is.
Right, or
Right,
Hestus,
you're right, or Hestus is. They don't know what the WAM is. Like, they don't, on the ERP, they don't work through that things. We work with those things. We have, it didn't come out in this, but if you look at, we have a plug-in into the WAM system, so Oracle old SPL system that a lot of our customers use in transit. We understand all these systems that trapeze. We have a whole intelligence system, BI, that we call Astra, Analytical Scorecard for Transit. And we sell that product, and it's called transitbi.com. You can go on that. But it just shows you the level of expertise we have with the transit and these products. Grants Analytics is another product, and grants that not many customers out in the world use.
Right.
And that's one reason that Oracle is very slow in bringing out a grants analytics products, because they have a handful of customers.
Right.
A company like Oracle is not going to create a product that doesn't have thousands of users, right? But we know that those are our customers, and we know that there is a gap in the product. So we have created an analytics for grants management that we have sold to 7 customers, including state of Georgia, some lot of very large customer, and some of them are not Oracle EBS customer, PeopleSoft customer, but they still need the grants analytics. So we have those expertise where we added value for our verticals that we work with. This is our bread and butter. We work with public sector and transit all the time. So we had to fix those issues and bugs. So adoption of Oracle products gets better. If you have a little, Band-Aid is the wrong word, but let's say even a Band-Aid. If certain things that Oracle doesn't do, and we put that Band-Aid and we make the system seamless, the adoption of that goes much higher for our customer base, which, for Oracle, that may be a small vertical. But overall, public sector is a large vertical for Oracle. But when you look at public sector, it's not a cohesive vertical. There are like hundreds of sub-verticals, and they all do business. Even when we say local government, what a county does and what a city does and how they do it is actually very different. For an outsider, state government and local government might look same. It's day and night, right? So we understand when you get down to it, when you're looking at a transit, that's like a LA Metro. And I tried to apply the same thing to you. It is not necessarily, even within that thing, it's not necessarily true.
Well, what we're trying to get is a partner that will, like, if they have the public sector experience, will see, even as our tickets, or they need this type of report that hopefully you have created somewhere else, and if you can, economies of scale, we'll already get it, so you can show now the time that you need to implement it here. So our goal would be to kind of look for those commonalities, especially for process improvement purposes, to ensure that we can get where we need to go from a monetary standpoint. So.
Absolutely.
As part of our support services, again, I mentioned Clark County Water Reclamation District, I said the same footprint. We got in, we didn't do the initial implementation. There was a lot of inefficiencies, the way that they were using the system. So we came up with an optimization initiative between, we had a procurement optimization, we had a financials optimization initiative that we went ahead and we re-interviewed, right? Because they had a year or two of using the system. They were like, why are we doing it this way? This doesn't seem straightforward. So we did an optimization process and streamlined 2 significant functional areas within them, and it was like, oh my God, why didn't we do this the first time? So again, our people have been around. We average at least 10 years of Oracle experience. We understand the industry, so we'll make those recommendations versus, hey, I got a bug, I'll fix it, move on. I'll get a bug, fix it. No, we think holistically and say, how can we improve the way you're utilizing the system? Because I'm sure you guys feel overwhelmed still. You've been live for a while, but you're still overwhelmed and you have this big thing going on. We'll help make you feel comfortable with that and make sure you're using it to the best efficiency.
And could you do that without doing an assessment?
Can we do that without doing assessment? Assessment would be then, in that case, assessment would be stretched out throughout you won't get as much bang right away. It is, what is your business purpose? Are you hurting? Do you want to get something fixed quickly? Or you can afford to have it roll into our support, so you, over a period of time, you correct that. Yes, you can do that without assessment. Not every client does assessment. But I'll give you an example from Cleveland RTA. They had 250 or so issues and gaps and problems we found when we got in. These were not tickets. These are not tickets we are talking about. These were specific problems that business users felt, and they thought they were helpless, that system wouldn't do it, or couldn't do it, or they didn't know how to do it. We document those, and more than 25% of that was fixed in that, their assessment was 6 weeks. In 6 weeks, more than 25% of them were resolved and fixed. And I'll give you specific examples. They were doing, for example, they were doing miscellaneous receipts to deposit all the funds that they collected from ticket centers and other places, and they could not tell where the money is coming from, which center gave me what money after a period of time, because miscellaneous receipt doesn't allow you to assign it to any individual. It doesn't have a customer. That was a very simple fix. We said you create internal customers and assign those to internal customers, and their implementation vendor hadn't done that. To them, customer was a customer, but no, you can have internal customers and just assign those to those as uninvoiced receipts. Problem fixed. So those kind of things we could do during assessment, and it's worthwhile, but you can stretch that experience during the support project as well. That's your call.
Does anybody else have any questions?
We have just under a minute.
And as far as the assessment goes, it sounds like you're flexible on the assessment, so can you pick and choose and ad hoc and say, well, we want a financials assessment and just focus on the financial side, or we want to focus just on procure to pay and, just in that area?
Yes.
Our pain points.
Yes.
Yeah, you could. You could do that. I wouldn't suggest that. I would slice and dice this differently. If you wanted to bring the assessment budget down, I have put a start on some of the things that you don't necessarily need to do, and not every customer does that, which is we don't necessarily have to look at Chemly and perform a technical assessment on your customizations quite yet. We have to look at the process and how you do things. Because of the integrated nature of the system, you do procure to pay, you're touching 5 modules.
Right.
So to say that I would only focus it on one module, and lo and behold, you can even encroach into HR because of the workflow issues and how you're structured. So they are very integrated, and I would say the best bang for your buck is to do an assessment where you can take technical pieces out, infrastructure pieces out, because you have an SLA with Tricor, you can hold them accountable, keep it up and running. We don't have to do that quite yet. Future process mapping and documentation, that's a good to have documentation, but that can be done over a period of time during the support project. You don't need it in the first 5 weeks. So those are things we can de-scout and do certain things with it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
You bet.
That's it?
That's it?
Yeah, time is up, but